Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem.
Bitcoin is just bouncing off that $16,000 mark. Will it go lower? Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Hashdex CEO and co-founder Marcelo Sampaio. Marcelo, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Morning.
Good morning. Great to have you here. So as I said, 16,000 seems to be a little bit of support right now. Do you think that this is a good bottom here, or do you think it'll go back down and touch some of that 15.4 that we saw recently? Do you think that there's more sell-off to be had, even though, is there any reason right now for buyers to be in the market?
It's very hard to say, actually, because that is tied to all the FTX, topic, we need to see if there is more contagion coming. So the Genesis situation, all the market. But if things still, keep stable at this point, I think that could be a good bottom. We know that the macro scenario is also playing, also, a role in all of this. So China now, all the pressure coming from China, is also putting some pressure on Bitcoin and crypto or risky assets in general. But we need to see what's going to happen. So, we have many chapters to actually follow in the coming weeks.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, the China angle, because of course we're seeing protests in China, a massive protest, the largest since 1989. And it took its hit on the exchanges in Asia overnight. And I'm wondering if the appetite for crypto on the retail side, at least in Asia, has waned a little bit here. Of course, that's counterintuitive from the traditional narrative that crypto is the safe haven asset. But are we now seeing a risk-off appetite by the retail markets? And what about the institutional markets? Are they also risk-off because of China and, of course, FTX?
So everything seems to be pretty correlated at this point. So crypto is being perceived as risky assets. So it has now with Nasdaq in general. So it's like if tech is suffering, crypto is suffering. This is nothing new if you look at the past. So every time we have some liquidity constraints, everything correlates. I don't think this is necessarily, something specific to crypto. We're seeing a number of safe havens, that used to work perfectly. Now they're not. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think that this correlation will break eventually in crypto. The crypto world, will have their own forces, putting pressure on them, and not necessarily tied to the macro environment the way it is now. But the fact is, now China, basically, everything, from interest rates, inflation, everything is kind of connected. And every time they have somewhat bad news or challenging news, that affects crypto negatively. I don't think that's going to last forever. But this is what's happening now.
Marcelo, for what it's worth, the crypto fear and greed index rose 28 points, I think, to now is rated at fear, but actually last week it was rating extreme fear. So in relative terms, can we at least say that sentiment is slightly better than it was? Is there anything to read in that, or are we still very much in a very, very bearish environment?
It is somewhat bearish, but I think what's let's say, given that, a little bit of stability or a little bit of positive or hope, is the lack of news tied to FTX. We've seen, last week, every time that, all this Genesis situation, rose, and then, the index actually suffered a bit. But for the past days, we've seen some, not so many relevant news around that. So no news, good news at this point, or as always. So basically, it's going to be tied to what happens next on the FTX contagion around the crypto market, I'd say.
What are you hearing from institutional investors at this time? Clearly some very big headlines out there, and one would expect that there's some that were thinking to get into this space, maybe getting cold feet. But apparently some others still saying, look, they're in it for the long haul, and they see the chances for this being a decent thing to be a part of for decades hence.
So it really depends on what kinds of institutional investors are we talking about. So if you take really the guys who long-term investors, it should not change much for them, because honestly, crypto will just follow its journey. This has so much more to do to the good and old scams than actually to crypto. The technology keeps solid, progressing and everything. But really, you have institutional investors that are really the traders, like the hedge funds and so on. These guys have been really much more risk averse. And I would say that these guys have suffered more, and they have been disallocating, in a good portion. But we know that the market comes and goes, right? So I would say that, just leave it, give it time, and let's see what is the debacle, and what's going to happen with all this FTX story. And whenever we see some stability, and we can go back to actually follow the market, and what is the progress that's happening, what are the good things, the good stuff, pretty much that crypto brings, everybody's going to come back eventually. It's hurting now to a lot of people, right? But we don't think that's going to be the scenario that's going to stick. I mean, it's not going to go forever, like I said. Eventually, going to come back, and crypto will start. Get back to its hot place again.
So, Marcelo, there's some online reporter called Lookonchain, I think is what it was called. They noted that some ETH, a large amount of ETH, has been put on Binance. And usually when currencies go on a centralized exchange, that's signal that maybe somebody's getting out of this. Do you think that we'll start to see some weakness in ETH?
That could be a scenario for the short term. For short term in ETH, I would assume that a number of players, either they have a very negative view, for the future based on what is happening now, or simply they have to sell based on the mandate they have. So that's very likely that will keep happening at some extent. But again, guys, this is very specific to the moment we're going through. That has nothing really to do with crypto, if you think. That always reminds me the Enron case, right? I mean, Enron back in the day, was a tragedy. It really brought all markets down and everything. But really, electricity was just doing its job. It kept bringing energy to homes, to businesses, and basically that's the parallel for crypto. We're gonna suffer in the short term, because that was terrible what happened with the FTX story. That is actually also an outcome. It comes from the Celsius 3 hours capital and so on. From from what happened back in the day. But ultimately, crypto, like I'm saying, it will just keep its journey. It will keep solving big problems that just Web2 can't.